So we're a little late on this, but it's worth mentioning that Eddsworld, the internet series, as most people know, has now officially come to an end after a from 2003 to 16. I'm trying to think how many years has that been.
12, no, 14, 15 years.
All right, then that's surprising.
Yeah, 14 years.
But yeah, 14 years.
I'm good at math.
We're good.
Yeah, it's well, it's been like the kind of a cornerstone of YouTube animations, mainly on Newgrounds, but which like a lot of people
Starting
like,
news for it. Yeah,
like Eagle Raptor and Rubber Ninja,
yeah.
because I think at the time didn't know anything about Eddsworld until I guess let me just see where because he has his season. I guess like his season 3 according to YouTube
Mm.
of Ruined and Santa Claus.
Mm.
That's when actually I started watching him. And
Mm.
it was like because of Junior, me and Mike started watching. It's like, hey, there's a thing called Hello Hello, go watch it. It's funny, and we actually did enjoy it. And from there, from season 4 to season 8,
Basically, from that point,
I guess season 8 or 9 is actually when it's finished now. Because as
yeah.
far as YouTube goes, season 7 goes to Hammer and Fail Part 2.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is that I got into it, like, ironically for you two, and bizarrely, because I had these characters I made, I had these round-headed characters called Derek, Ronnie, and Sue, and I think it might have been Michael Jr. that said, "Oh, one of them looks a bit like Tom." I was like, "Who's Tom?" And then I saw this show, and I was like, "Oh, I see what you mean." So, ironically, I saw it out of the case of, "Hey, that looks familiar. That's something else," but hey, it got me into it, and been watching ever since.
Yeah, but I guess what actually cemented a lot of for me to actually be a fan. It's just like it's wacky sense of humor. It's like this is pretty much me and Mike like what we. I guess when we're like kids, if I was kids again, it's
Yeah.
like in 1998. I'm guessing like 10 to 12 years old. Like we're still clinging to our childhoods. We don't want to really grow up, and we were kind of and we saw TV series Bottom, and we kind of like let's really like that. Let's make our own comedic series. And like years later, we watched this. It's like, damn, someone beat us to it. I mean, we had our Reedy Bros in 2008, but Eddsworld was like before us,
Mm.
and it kind of cements a the comedic timing in the animation and the situations they allow like because of animation allows them to go in made it
Mm.
funny. Like, oh hey, let's go train in the army, which we could have done because our friend Junior has a family in the army. Which could have been great, but honestly, we won't be able to get rid of like, let's go in a helicopter and take off in it. It's like I don't think we can do that.
No,
You won't get
no.
me on the damn thing.
Good advice, yeah. It's funny. It's funny you say that because I do see a lot of you, all three of you, in Ed's world. I mean, ironically, I think Mike said, each one of us represents them. Like, I think I'm meant to be Matt. You're meant to be Tom,
I
maybe.
guess
Yeah, Mike is probably Ed, and Junior is Todd.
I would
So
see you more as Todd and then Matt. But like, I don't think any of us are actually is Matt.
no,
No one's
um,
that self obsessed.
no, no one's that. No, I'm not that self-obsessed about myself.
I guess it
uh,
would have been me because I was really at the time I was definitely trying to maintain my long hair. That's the
do
closest we have, and even after that,
you have a
after that, I was
profound
like, I've
chin?
got Spike to be David Tennant.
Yeah, but you didn't. Do you have a profound chin as well? I think it's the hair and the chin that
No, I
makes.
don't have a profound chin.
Yeah. Uh, but I think it's worth mentioning that as I watched it, as I got into it more, one thing I really noticed is particularly how much because this essentially was done by one guy, Ed Gould, because these are named after real people. Um, and one thing I was surprised about, if you go back from like its very early animation, I mean, you look at them and they're clearly first time Flash learning how to do stuff and, just getting through basics. And by the time as you watch them, you saw the development of his skills. And that's what I really cling onto is that this guy learned how to make animation work in Flash. And particularly, it just shows his evolution in the process.
Yeah, and even then, his art and animation got really well recognized to a point where the BBC wanted to hire him and give him the animation, which he turned
Well,
down.
yeah, I mean,
He turned
yeah,
down job opportunities because it's like I want this to be my work, no one else's.
Yeah, I mean, ironically, Eddsworld has grown. I mean, there were a few times because he did do a environmental special, and then they did a skit with Mitch and Webb,
Yeah,
which
that's
was
probably the
an
closest thing to an official TV thing, but I think it was mostly online for the
Yeah.
Mitchell and
So
Webb.
if you watch that again, you'll notice actually that there's a couple of gunmen trying to shoot at the car, and it's actually Ed and Tom in masks. So it's a cheeky little
Yeah.
snuck them in there.
And as everyone on the internet would know, in 2012, Ed Gould died from leukemia cancer. So
Yeah.
that kind of shocked. Like, really, you really got like you're gonna make another
I
episode.
was surprised he had cancer. I mean, that was the shocking thing. Like, after we found out more about it, like he had cancer for a bit. But it's like I would never even guess this. That was more shocking than I think.
Hmm. So and
Than,
even though he was trying to battle it, eventually died because of it. And
mm.
he said like to Tom like if anything happens, I want you
To
to
his
I want,
family
and his
as well.
family's
Yeah.
like I want him to take care of it. I want my world to keep going.
Yeah.
And even though it's like even Tom will attest saying he made up a Kickstarter to actually keep the show going.
The
Then again, it's
crowdfunding.
like
Yeah.
yeah, he could have handled that much better. It's like it's one of the biggest mistakes he's done for the Eddsworld.
Yeah, I mean the Eddsworld Legacy. I mean the whole point was to keep it going. Is say we'll do a couple of more episodes and we're done. And then that was back in like what just about half a year after Ed died, and it took about until this year for it to officially finish.
Yeah, and that's like a lot of like mainly it's like well, firstly we're going to get a new voice for Ed, and they cleverly did a little thing
They
like
did it in
use
the
a voice
first
changer to get the voice back. Like it's not exactly, but then again, it's a good cheeky bit of writing.
It's worth mentioning because I saw an interview with Tom talking about Eddsworld in general. Like particularly, he said after Ed died, because at the time basically they were all playing themselves. They were playing a heightened version of themselves. But after Ed died, Tom made the decision that from now on, these are not us anymore. They have to be more or less. They're going to be even more exaggerated.
Caricatures. Like even like Mike pointed this out. So it was going to kind of derail a little bit. Mike pointed this out, especially when me and Mike working together and working separately. When me and Mike are separate, he's kind of a bit zany and high pitched in his work, and I'm pretty much straightforward as I am now. I may go a bit over the top at times, especially when it gets a bit emotional or angry, which I have been several times. Fuck you, Ken Penders. I'll keep doing that for as long as I live. And
Yeah,
but when we work together, the roles change. He's more sensible and very level-headed, and I'm a bit more zany and high-pitched.
yeah.
And that's how I work. It's like I'm going to be a character. I'm going to be more free-flowing and cartoony.
Yeah. And it is funny because a lot of it, like I said, Ed did a lot of the shorts he did were done by Ed. I mean, a lot of them he came up with the idea, he animated them like I don't know how quickly because he went from one thing and working on to the next one.
And that's the best way you can do about stuff. It's like that's how a lot of animators like. Kind of a bad example, Hot Diggity Demon, with his Pony series. Yeah, he actually went from one to the other with that. And his previous series, Rocky Game Shows for Kids, he went from one to the other. Did not take a break in between. And I think
again, you got to give your hat out to Ed doing that, particularly with the way he was. Well, particularly when he was Zelda, and then he got better afterwards for a bit. It's amazing how much he focused on doing this as a series. It really did surprise me how much he put into this.
Yeah, like majority of Part 1 was animated, but had to be rescued by I forget his name. Forget the animator's name.
Paul. Oh, it's Paul.
Yeah, Paul.
Yeah, but it's also worth mentioning because I think particularly after the fact they continued after Ed, I mean that was the first thing, and then the question was, okay, could it still work without Ed? Particularly because the animation, like I said before, like if Ed had continued, I like to think by the time we got to the end, like the two-part end, I would have thought that by then, animation-wise, he would have gotten to the point where Paul was, and Paul's animation, you can tell there is more of a. I'm not damning Ed's animation with faint praise, but Paul's animation is a lot more. At times, it does look like you could put this on television, but it's very clean, it's very well done. There's a lot of very exaggerated looks, and I think part of the reason why it took so long for him to come out is because they wanted to make this as good looking as possible. And then again, the other difference is Ed was so committed doing it, he would just do it, whereas Tom, particularly having to struggle with, he had to write it, had to voice it, and then be the guy in charge of it, and
Pretty
the
much
animators
being the
know.
showrunner for the show. It wasn't like a fun little
Yes.
side thing for his friend to do and help out. It was a full-time gig.
Yeah, it made this his job essentially.
And that's outside of doing
And
his own work, his own skits and other collabs he's doing.
yeah, I mean, it's fair to say that there are some people who felt like, oh, it's not been as good after Ed died. It's like, well, it's not going to be the same if Blank's no longer with us. And I think particularly a point Tom did say that some people say, why don't you do it like Ed did? It's like, well, I can't because I'm not Ed. I'm sorry, I'm just not him, and I can't have his voice in my head all the time because again, it just reminds me that the fact he's not here anymore. So I do think part of the reason why it took so long, again, it was sort of driving Tom mad essentially, which, particularly in work, this happens a lot. Some people could be doing all this, trying to do all this stuff, and then they don't know about the personal lives and stuff, and sometimes that's the thing that drives people mad.
Like, I got my own videos I like to do on my own little projects, and even then, it's like, sometimes I'll think to myself, am I taking way too much time trying to make this one thing or multiple projects? Like, even this Iron Box it is a project, it's work, but I don't let it try and take up. I just like, here's a recording on Sunday, we release them during the week, and it's not exactly a main feature. There are main features I like to do, but in between all, I was like, you know what, I can take a week, I can do recording on once a week, edit it, and release it, and throughout those days I can do other things, like spend time with my wife, and talk to friends or such.
Yeah, because like I said, it's getting the balance right, and clearly, God help Tom for getting this done. Which
probably can't interrupt, but even then, like, I'm pretty much small fry compared to Tom. Yeah, like I'm doing game reviews, let's plays, little podcasts. He is doing a full-fledged animation that he has to pay all these people, including like Paul, and even Brandon Turner did a couple of episodes, and you have to pay them, you have to pay the voice actors, pay the writers, basically the whole cover of the work. But he had his own work, he had to put on his own 2 channels, one of them being a vlog, the other one being actual sketches, and even other animations called Crash Zoom. So you can take into account, like, he's only one guy with a crew, but even then, everyone has what they want to do.
Exactly. I mean, this is the thing, particularly, ironically, you compare this like with Python in particular. I mean, the Python group, when they started, they all were huddled together because they had nothing else to do, and they just enjoyed being with each other. But as time went on, as they started to branch out and start doing their own personal things, they kind of got less and less interested being in the group. They've already got different committees to go to.
Especially with especially in season 4 with John Cleese.
Exactly. I mean, John, famously didn't want to do a third series, but he only did it because the BBC would a third one, and the guys would feel a bit left out. But again, that's what happens when you're with friends. You do certain things, stuff, and particularly with Eddsworld, like I said, the fact. Again, I still remember how long it took for Fun Dead to come out. It was arguably the one that took the longest to come out from the Christmas,
from
I can't remember the Scrooge one.
And,
Space Face, then we had the Christmas. Snoga, that's the one, because we had that, which was it ends with the preludes of everything, so that was the longest wait. But I will admit, it's like, I've still enjoyed what it happens. I mean, I will say there's 1 or 2 episodes I've not been happy, but I never felt like, oh, this is just pure shit. This is just, crap compared to what it used to be.
Yeah, the cowboy one, I didn't finish that one, just, I don't know, something about it just threw me off.
I was, we should probably talk about, like, for us, just looking back at both, what would you say was your favourite Eddsworld the Eddsworld, and then post-Eddsworld one? What would you say was your favourite or least favourite?
Our favourite one has to be Hammer and Fail 2-parter. Because everything kind of like a bit of a shift in the characters, and like, here's like a sitcom, and that's what I kind of like.
Yeah, it started to actually have a plot.
And the Legacy series of episodes, I don't really know. I guess I had to say Space Face Part 2, because that's like the first episode of the Legacy. And it's like, here's the characters, here's how they're going to look from the future onwards. And it's just all the little jokes and everything. It's like, it still felt like Eddsworld, but it kind of is like a little tonal shift to say it's new.
Yeah, this is going to be a different version of it, but the spirit of it hopefully will be the same. For me, like, going back from original Eddsworld to say, I'm trying to think actually, I would say definitely Santa Claus 1 and 2. What the Future, that was definitely my favourite of Ed's first initial run. Then Space Base Part 1, and then Legacy Part 2, and I'm trying to think of another one in the between. I think there was another short or something, because there were a couple of other shorts, and both ends,
Oh, I
both
forgot
the
one
end,
of them.
basically.
Hide and Seek is a good one.
That was strong. Yeah, that was a very good. That was a good little shot to find time.
Especially the Professor Y segments.
I still, when I first said that, I thought, like, does this mean Tom doesn't like Doctor Who anymore? I really thought that was what it was. It was like just him saying, yeah, we don't like Doctor Who anymore. But then when you think about it, it's actually, this is how bad it would be if they just used every cliche. It's like, we have to stop the sponsors. Okay, I got a
magic
machine.
box.
Oh.
No, it's not going anywhere. Do it. I got a magic wand. Oh. Yes. Yotta, you've been shot. Don't worry. My body is also magical. Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably just a better case of this is how bad Doctor Who would be if it used if it just used the easy route for every
So the writing is still there.
Yeah. The in-jokes are still there. I mean, that's one thing particularly Ed was very good at, is the little gags in the background or puns. I mean, he loves puns, Ed.
I think that also attributes to, I forget his, Eddie Bowley. He has had a bit of an influence from him, because he started writing, helping out in writing from Funded onwards.
Yeah, and he became, like, I think he was the director for, like, the last few of them. But it's funny because, again, it's particularly the passion that people had for Eddsworld. I was genuinely surprised because, like I said, I watched the series and I enjoyed it for what it was. I thought, here's a funny, little web series that, in a weird way, kind of, particularly with the references, was very like Wallace and Gromit. There would be back jokes or hidden gags or all that stuff everywhere. But I was surprised, particularly both when Ed died and particularly the end of the series now, is particularly how much people still passionate for it. I was genuinely surprised people still cared about this series and wanted to continue it as much as they can. I mean, that's generally what surprised me the most. Like, Ed really did touch a lot of people, surprisingly enough. In fact, I had the good chance once to actually meet Matt, the real Matt, to meet this. And again, it was just, it's incredible to think they were still doing it, the passion they have. I mean, at that point, I was talking about, what happened with Tom and the whole being homeless thing? Oh, yeah, that whole thing happened. But again, surprising how many people still cared about Eddsworld and particularly the individuals involved. And how much, I think it's sort of, in many ways, I think it's sort of the first time, I think Eddsworld's one of the few that show that the internet can be a useful place for showing off creative stuff.
Wasteland with the people saying, it's not the same anymore. It still exists. It's still animation. It still has the same charm. They're not the same, I guess, aura, which Ed definitely had.
Yeah.
But the charm is still there.
The charm was still there. I mean, that was definitely it. I mean, I was happy with it too. I mean, the sad as, the fact that he passed away, the fact that the show kept going and we managed to enjoy these later episodes and them getting done in the first place, I'm just certainly grateful. Yeah. And I do think particularly with at this point, nobody knows what the real future of it. I mean, the only thing we do know is Ed's family owns it pretty much, so they're really the people in charge. Though outside of maybe a possible new miniseries or maybe some more shorts.
Probably on the webcomic that is still touch and go. Yeah.
Touch and go,
I'd say that's pretty much it for Eddsworld, which, as far as the two-parter, which brought back Tom, which was fucking great. Not too sure I'll make him the bad guy, but still.
I actually did wonder if that was the real Tom, but it wasn't. But
it would have been good, but it was good.
It would have been good, but it was good enough anyway.
As far as that two-parter goes, that's pretty much a good way to end the series.
Yeah, it's a good way to leave it, pretty much. In many cases, it's there to come back if it wants, but it's okay for it to stop here, pretty much. I think that's the difference. Because a lot of shows never know how to end, or they tend to end it before, but they somehow found a way to keep extending going. So, in this circumstance, for something that could have easily ended without the person behind it, the fact they've gone and done this, so we'll make more episodes, we'll get them done, and we'll put it to rest in a good way. I can't say anything. I mean, really, that is ultimately the best thing you could say about Eddsworld, is that it is just such a charming, fun series that is, entertained me, you, Mike and Mike and Junior, and I just think it's amazing that we've had it for so long, and I'm just grateful for the fact we had it for this long.